Hey guys, welcome back to the Ultimate Goosebumps Man channel. And today I have a very fun and exciting video, something a little different than Goosebumps, but I am here with my good friend BD Horror, aka the Horror Tavern, who is one of the panelists on Goose Junkies, an awesome guy along with complete Goosebumps completionist. They're great guys. We always have fun talking on the Goose Junkies podcast. And today we are going to be doing a movie review for you guys. And it's based on a franchise that him and I both love dearly. I mean, my shirt gives it away. But the movie we're reviewing is Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, which is the second movie in the four sets of movies that were released in the late 90s and early 2000s that were kind of the Scooby-Doo revival, basically, because Scooby-Doo was kind of dead in the water at the time. There wasn't really much fanfare going on because Where Are You was done, and the other spin-off series kind of weren't really gaining the attention that the people running the show wanted, Hanna-Barbera wanted. So they revived this franchise with the first movie, which is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, which is probably one you've all heard about if you're a Scooby-Doo fan. The movie is fantastic. It's one of the darkest, scariest Scooby-Doo movies out there. And it's just great. And then after the success of Zombie Island, they came out with Witch's Ghost. And this movie is really fun. It's just one of those movies that is another very iconic one for the Scooby-Doo fans, mainly because it introduces some characters that are very much fan favorites in the community. And we'll get to that when I talk about the movie. But for any of you who don't know what the plot for, or actually, how are you doing, BD? Forgot to mention that.
Yo, people and patrons of the night, what's good? I'm with my boy, the Ultimate Goosebumps Man. This is probably the most excited I've been for a collab because me and him are Scooby-Doo heads. We're Scooby-Doobers. We talk about this stuff off camera all the time. We love talking about it. And I did review Zombie Island before, so I was like, you know what? I have to do a review for Witch's Ghost. But I was lazy. That's on me. I didn't do it on my own channel, but it worked out because I get to talk about it with my boy. And yeah, I'm very excited because listen, man, when these first four movies came out for Scooby-Doo, it was like the best part of being a kid. Like, I don't know about you guys, but these things were legendary. You had to be there. If you were there, you used to watch these things rerun every single year. And when I watched Witch's Ghost, I watched it like I didn't watch the movie for years. I rewatched it like months ago, and that was like having funnel cake with vanilla ice cream and caramel drizzle being fed to me by Anne Hathaway. Like, it was amazing, dude. And I rewatched it now for this man's channel, and it's still just as good. So I'm so hyped, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah. I actually did not grow up on these movies either. I just started watching them like I watched Zombie Island around like September or October of last year because
Oh,
I
really?
actually they had these DVDs at our local Barnes and Noble for like $5 a piece. So I bought
Ooh.
this and Zombie Island. So this is my first time watching them pretty recently, and they're great. They're awesome movies. Like probably some of my favorite Scooby media of all time.
For
But
sure.
getting into the plot synopsis of Witch's Ghost, it basically opens up with Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby at a museum solving the mystery of these like Egyptian, Nordic kind of monsters. I don't know how to describe them, but they're basically this really fun chase sequence for them all disguised as like different exhibits in the museum. And of course, there's the classic like remix of Scooby-Doo or Are You's theme song that plays during this chase sequence, which is carried over from Zombie Island. They did the same thing in the open of that movie. And I think that's just the perfect way to open this movie up. It just sets the tone for that classic feeling of Scooby-Doo that we all grew up with. We all love that original idea of Scooby-Doo, and it's just very nostalgic and brings those good memories back. And after catching these monsters, they are approached by this author named Ben Ravencroft, who is voiced by the legendary Tim Curry. And this guy is awesome. Like, he's probably one of my favorite side Scooby characters, mainly for Tim Curry's performance. And we'll get to his performance later on when it gets later on in the movie, because that's where his performance really goes crazy. But basically, he is kind of like a Stephen King kind of parody who writes horror novels. And he's kind of Velma's idol. And so Velma is starstruck seeing him, and he ends up inviting the group of them out to this little village he stays in called Oakhaven, which is this kind of old-fashioned, kind of like old-timey village. It's in Salem, and when they get there, there's this whole thing going on where they discover that the mayor of the town has opened this place as this big tourist attraction, which is not something that Ben is very happy about. because this whole tourist attraction centers around this idea of this ghost of a supposed witch named Sarah Ravencroft, who is Ben's ancestor. And the whole thing is like they're bringing us this guiding tourists in here on the idea of, oh, you get to see and survive the witch's ghost. And obviously, because she was Ben's ancestor, and according to Ben, she was very misunderstood. She was not a witch, according to him. She was this healer who was very, misunderstood by the locals. And she used natural herbal remedies. She was kind of known as a Wiccan. And she was unfairly burned at the stake, like most witches were at the time of the Salem witch trials. And basically, the whole mystery is revolving around when Shaggy and Scooby meet the supposed ghost of Sarah Ravencroft, who is this really cool-looking witch who flies around, shoots fireballs, and it's just like a lot of those chase sequences with her are really fun, and just like the design is really great. And I can't even talk, but like it's just a really fun time in that early part of the movie. It's very classic Scooby-Doo. And during this time, you also meet some of these big characters that everybody in the Scooby-Doo community loves, the Hex Girls, who are this band of goths, basically. They call themselves eco-goths. And they're just these three girls who are in a rock band. And they're just really fun characters. Like, just their music is awesome. Like, I love listening to their music. I've listened to I found like a YouTube playlist of all their music, so I've listened to that a lot recently. And like, it's just awesome. Like, everything about the Hex Girls is really fun. Their personalities are great. They have this really fun kind of almost sick joy out of scaring people, because they do this a lot with Shaggy and Scooby in the beginning when they first meet them. And it turns out later on in the movie that Thorn, who is the leader of the Hex Girls, is part Wiccan on her mother's side, which is not how genetics work, but okay. But basically, they try solving this mystery of this supposed ghost, and halfway through the movie, they kind of pull out the rug from under you, and they do that classic Scooby-Doo unmasking, and it turns out that this ghost is Thorn's dad. And so everyone's kind of confused and like not really sure what's going on, and kind of the audience too, because it's halfway through the movie and you already got your unmasking. So it's one of those kind of subversions of expectations I really like these movies do. And eventually they find this book that Ben was looking for, it's apparently Sarah's book that she used that had all her healing remedies and stuff in it. And Ben is looking for this because of the fact that he wants to try and clear Sarah's name. And there's a big plot twist once they find the book. And let's just say it turns out Sarah exactly wasn't a misunderstood healer. Nah, she was an actual witch. And Ben, because he's an ancestor of her, reveals that he's a warlock. And this is where Tim Curry's voice acting just goes full hammy, full fun, and it's awesome. Like, he basically manages to harness the power of the book, gets his own magic abilities, and just starts just going crazy against the gang and like trying to kill them and attack them. And eventually he ends up releasing the ghost of Sarah. And Sarah's not too happy about Ben. And I don't want to go into much else because I don't want to spoil too much else about the movie, but there's really fun climax in there, fun way of dealing with the villain in the end. And it's just overall a great movie. Ends with a nice concert from the Hex Girls. It's all around just a really fun movie that I really love. So, BD, why don't you go into your thoughts on the movie?
So this is one that is like, it's crazy to me because when I watched Zombie Island and then I went to watch this one basically right after it, I got Zombie Island and this movie on the same tier, but I always treat them like Coke and Pepsi. People all got their preference. I think they're the same quality, but I think Zombie Island is a scarier movie. The monsters, the atmosphere, the stuff that happens is a lot creepier. But this one, I just prefer. I treat it like Pepsi because it's got a sweeter plot. It's got a way better plot. It's fleshed out, in my opinion. Some of the things I love about this movie is, first off, like you mentioned, the beginning scene is this big chase scene in the museum. I love the guy running into the caveman exhibit, and then they have to pretend that they're part of the enclosure. I love how Ben Ravencroft gets introduced. and he's a great villain, but I'll cover him just a little bit later. But one of the big things I like about the movie is the fact that, first of all, it takes place in Salem, Massachusetts, and they're very open about the fact of the history of these witches being burned at the stake, being killed. That being in a kids' movie is even a little bit darker than Zombie Island. Zombie Island is like viscerally dark, but the context of this movie is just straight up like nightmare fuel when you think about it. I love the aspect of the town and the fact that the first half of the movie, like you mentioned, is your typical Scooby-Doo twist, except the fact that the entire town is in on it is pretty well done because, as Ben Ravencroft mentions, this was his hometown. He grew up here. He invites basically the gang there because he wants a nice, quiet place where they can look at the autumn leaves, look at the whole, typical Massachusetts stuff. And then when they get there, it's a tourist town. They're trying to make money off of it. So when you find out that the initial crazy ghost that was throwing fireballs and doing giant, big chase scenes, and even Velma notices that the tops of trees are cut off in straight lines. It was all practical. It was all done by the town so they could hype up this urban legend and make money because they're not making any money and they got families to feed. They got people they got to take care of. So they made up this whole scheme, which you think about it is pretty deep. It's kind of like if you've ever seen the movie Jaws, where they basically are covering up the crimes of the shark to basically make sure that they can keep making money for tourism. It's the same thing here. They're making up an entire mystery, which is basically tarnishing as far as you know, Ben Ravencroft's family name. But at the same time, how else are they going to survive? So I like that aspect. And then when you get into the whole big reveal, Ben Ravencroft is an S tier villain. I mean, this dude has anime villain level aura. I mean, literally, he's the most calm Stephen King kind of guy, very nice dude, very soft spoken. You can get a hint that there's something a little bit off with him because he's like very, like, I guess, like desiring to get this book. And, you kind of assume, okay, it's to clear up the family name. He's very angry. He's got an angry side to him. But then the climax, this dude turns into a warlock. You get some fantastic sequences where, like, he'll start manipulating the weather. He'll cause storms. He throws fire. He starts messing with the mystery machine. He, like, blows out the tires and makes them nearly crash. Some creatures start getting brought to life later on, thanks to Sarah Ravencroft's ghost. So that whole climax scene is amazing because I love magic battles. And the fact that you get a whole anime sequence, super powered kind of battle between the mystery gang and him, and the fact that the mystery gang, like, Shaggy and Scooby are doing their normal antics versus literal magicians. That's crazy. If you love the gang, this is the movie that does justice to basically every member of the gang. Each of them get their own shine. The fact that Velma feels betrayed is a good character moment for her because we all know Velma's a bookhead. We saw in Zombie Island that she works at a library. So the fact that she's in love with this Stephen King type author, you get the hint that she kind of has a crush on him and she looks up to him. And the fact that he betrays her, he does her so dirty. He does her so foul that it's like you feel bad for Velma. You're like, yo, she doesn't deserve this. Not for how nice she is. You get, Freddie and Daphne, they actually get more of a romantic push in this movie, which I was shocked. I was like, yo, the second movie back in like the 1990s is pushing the romance. It was, it gives you an open kind of relationship between the two. And that, again, all the relationships play well into how the town is affected, how Ben Ravencroft gets hyped up, and Sarah Ravencroft, oh my God, she's even more ruthless than him. And it makes for a nice twist because I'm going to keep it spoiler free for the climax, but there's some betrayal that goes on, not just for the good guys, potentially maybe for some more characters. There's some betrayal that goes on, and it's basically karma. Karma always comes back. That's karma to certain characters. So all of that is amazing. I think this movie is like a perfect package of just a Scooby-Doo movie because there's no point in this movie that I think it's slow. I think each part of the movie is interesting. It's fun. You got good music, good characters, good everything. And speaking of good music, I was specifically saving this shout out for the end. Oh man, the Hex Girls, dude. Listen, y'all have no idea what it felt like to be a little boy looking at these beautiful goth. Listen, man, you discover yourself quick. Listen. If any of you women out there do a good Thorn cosplay, listen, hit up my business email, business inquiry only. Hit it up. Let me know because Thorn, man, yo, man, If She-Go from Kim Possible has nothing on Thorn. Thorn is, oh Lord have mercy, funnel cake, vanilla ice cream, caramel drizzle, and Anne Hathaway's lingerie all into one is Thorn. I mean, she's fantastic. And you got great music. The first backstage performance they have is catchy, Hex girl, and they're gonna put a spell on you, which they said they need to put a spell on you to make you do what they want to do. You don't need a spell on me for that. Listen, I'll do what you want. Listen, now give it up. I'll do what you want to do. And then the performance at the end, the fact that you get all these crazy scenes in the movie, all these like big town layers, and the ending of the movie is a huge performance by the Hex Girls at the festival with the gang performing in it. And it literally ends with Scooby in a Dracula costume, trying to scare the audience, like the camera, and then his teeth fall out, and then he closes it with his cape. It is such a great movie. I don't think there's like anything that I could like hope to improve with it. So yeah, in my opinion, I would give this movie a 10 out of 10. It's just a perfect animated movie to me. It's a perfect Scooby-Doo movie. I would give Zombie Island 9.8. So this one I have slightly above. But listen, man, I think if you love the first movie, you're gonna love this movie. And honestly, this movie needs more love. Because like Zombie Island gets a lot of talk and justified. It's justified. Cyber Chase gets a lot of talk because it's the Avengers. You get all the old villains coming back. It's big. And Alien Invaders is like that slept on one that people like and they like the stuff involving it. So please go watch Witch's Ghost. I think it's 100% worth it. But with that, let me ask a question to Micah, because personally I have no negatives with it. So are there any negatives you may have with it? And what would be your score in terms of this movie?
So my negatives are very minor. They're mainly nitpicks more than their actual problems with the movie. One of them is, I mentioned this before, when in the climax, when all these things start happening and these things start getting affected by magic, there is this turkey that ends up turning giants, and like there's this giant fun chase scene with this giant turkey. But once the villains are defeated, all the things affected by the magic are reverted back to normal. But the turkey is not. Which is like, I never realized that the first time I watched this, but rewatching it now, I don't know why. It was just like, it's funny, but like it doesn't make sense. Like, why was that not affected when everything else was? Like, I think they just did it for a funny gag at the end where they have a giant turkey dancing to the Hex Girls music. That's the only reason they had that in there, I think. And my other negative is more of a nitpick, is that I'm honestly not a big fan of the voice cast for the main gang in these movies. Like, they're not my favorites. I grew up with the voice cast that was in like Mystery Incorporated and What's New Scooby-Doo. Like, those are my Scooby voice actors. Obviously, Frank Welker is Fred. Like, he's still Fred in this movie. And I think he's not Scooby in this movie. But Frank Welker is always great because he's always been Fred. There's not been another voice actor for Fred. And it's going to be really weird once Frank Welker passes away, because I don't know who they're going to get to replace him as Fred, because he is Fred Jones. But I'm like, I don't know. My favorite voice cast is like Grey Griffin as Daphne. She is my favorite Daphne. What's her name? Mindy Cohen as Velma, who is Velma in What's New Scooby-Doo and Mystery Incorporated. And I know this might be controversial to some people, but I like Matthew Lillard's Shaggy. Matthew Lillard is my Shaggy. Casey Kasem, I can acknowledge he's great, but I personally grew up with Matthew Lillard more, so that's kind of the one I more gear towards. And the cast in this movie, while they're not bad, I just think their voices are a little weird, especially Shaggy and Scooby. And I think they're voiced by the same guy in this movie too. So like they end up sounding a little similar to each other. And like, I don't know. I think especially Scooby's voice is very weird in these movies. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's still not bad. It's still not a negative. Again, it's just not my preferred cast. But those are really the only two like nitpicks I have. They're not even negatives. And I give this movie like a 9.5 out of 10. Like, I love it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think like because like I grew up with Where Are You? Like, even though I was a 2000s baby, Where Are You used to replay all the time. So like my favorite voice actors are the ones from Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, and What's New. I love What's New is like that's my favorite Scooby-Doo show personally, but I love all the voice actors there. In these movies, obviously I love Fred because Fred, his voice actor has always been there. I actually do like Shaggy's voice actor for the most part. I think when he does deliver his lines, it's funny. Like in this movie, when they finished eating all the food and the Hex Girls pull up, the whole scene where Shaggy takes his stomach and puts stuff to his chest, slicks back his hair, and he's like, "What up, ladies?" Like, I thought that actually made me laugh, and the fact
Yeah,
that
that was good.
his reactions are always good. But I do
Mhm.
agree. I think Daphne's all right. Velma sometimes is a little bit wonky, but I'm not gonna lie to you. Scooby is the only one that, like, every time I listen to the movies, I'm like, I would have preferred a different Scooby voice actor because I always thought that, like, in Where Are You, his voice sounds natural, and What's New, his voice sounds natural. Here, it very much sounds like a person playing Scooby, like someone trying to impersonate Scooby instead of it sounding
Mhm.
like an actual Scooby VA. Like, I noticed when the mayor asked him, like, "Oh, and you brought your dog too," and he's like, "Wrong, rare," and it's like, it kind of sounds like somebody impersonating Scooby. So
Mhm.
I agree that is a little nitpick of mine, but hey, 9.5 out of 10. I'm all there with you. Still a great movie. So let me ask you another important question, and this would probably be like my last one. Where does this movie rank in the Mount Rushmore of the first four for you? Because I know that everyone's got different orders, so I want to hear what you think about the order.
Well, for my personal order from like, I guess one's my least favorite just by default because I haven't seen it, which is Cyber Chase. I still want to watch it. I just have it at the bottom because I haven't seen it, so I can't fairly judge it. But then my ranking honestly is like the reverse order of the movie releases. It's Cyber Chase just by default, then Alien Invaders, which is Ghost, and Zombie Island.
Zombie Island. Okay. I think in mine, I'm gonna leave out Alien Invaders because I don't know why. This is one that I completely forget. I don't remember much of it, but I always hear great things and I'm excited to watch it. But if I had to rank it, I'd probably go Witches Ghost is my number one. Then I would do Cyber Chase because Cyber Chase, from what I remember, has always been my like most fun movie. I've seen it constantly, but I do have to rewatch it. And then I would do Zombie Island. But to be honest, Cyber Chase, Zombie Island, and Witches Ghost are all like Hall of Fame, basically perfect scores. So I love each of them, and I'm sure when I watch Alien Invaders, I'm still gonna love that one too. So yeah, anybody out there who has not grown up with these movies, or maybe you did and you haven't seen them in a long time, from me to Micah, please go check them out because you're gonna have a whole lot of fun. As long as you're a Scooby-Doo fan, you're gonna love these.
Yeah, for sure. It's like it's kind of one of those weird things too. It's like I've noticed there are some people who aren't diehard Scooby-Doo fans that aren't big fans of these movies. But like I don't know why. I think it's just because there's a lot of people who don't like the Scooby-Doo formula, and these movies still
Mhm.
kind of have that in there. I don't really know why some people don't like them, but I've noticed that like if you're a diehard Scooby fan, you love these, but if you're not a big Scooby fan, usually you're not a fan of it. So,
Well, you know it's crazy though. There have been some people though that I heard that they don't like the shows because the shows are obviously very formulaic, but they actually
mhm.
prefer the movies because the movies like flesh out entire plots. Like one of our friends on the Goose Junkies podcast, Goose Completionist, he didn't grow up being a big Scooby Doo fan, and he thinks that the shows are sometimes formulaic, which he's right. You know, it's a taste thing. They get
Mhm.
formulaic at times, but he says he prefers the movies because the movies flesh out entire plots and give you more. So I feel like there are some people who like if you just like you like personally die hard don't like Scooby Doo, don't check this out obviously. But like let's say if you're on the fence with Scooby Doo, I still think you can find something in the movie because the movies give you like an hour plus of just material all woven together. So at least try them if you're like that.
Yeah, and usually the nice thing about the movies too is that they do break the formula a lot of the time. Specifically with the whole bad guys in a mask thing. While they still
Mm-hmm.
have that, they also add the idea of real monsters in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these movies. It's not even just these first four original ones. A lot of the other era movies, not a lot of them, but a few of them do. Like Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King is a prime example of that. And I'm not exactly sure what all the other modern ones do that. I think most of the modern ones are traditional Scooby-Doo, but I think the ones that break the formula are the ones that people most likely geared towards if they're not diehard Scooby fans.
Yeah, because there's actual stakes involved. Like when you see the gang actually dealing with real stuff, like it's actually good. And I wish that that was in the show more. I'm a little disappointed that the shows never really gave us like season finale episodes where they would do like real threats. But I treat the movies as like extended version of the show. Like obviously, Where Are You? I treat this as like they became adults, they all separated, or even like the same What's New plotline. I treat that as extensions of the show. So this is basically like really good fan fiction. This is like if people came up with good fan fiction, this is what these movies turn into basically.
Hmm. And also, what you did say though about the big season finales that have real stakes, that would kind of tease into another collab we're planning on doing, Scooby Doo
Mhm.
Mystery Incorporated. because that show actually does have real supernatural threats in it. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the reasons why I love that show. We obviously we get more into detail on that in our future collab when we talk about it, but spoiler alert, it's my favorite piece of Scooby media of all time.
Yeah, that one's gonna be fun because like with this movie, I grew up watching this, but you didn't. So with Mystery Incorporated, you grew up with that. That's your bread and butter. But I didn't grow up watching that. Only the one episode we did on our cartoon collab. So I'm excited to watch all that for the first time. So
yeah, it's a fun one.
for sure, for sure. Well, any concluding thoughts? I mean, we already raved about the movie, so I don't think we got anything else after this.
Yeah, no, really. Again, as we said before, if you're a Scooby-Doo fan and you haven't seen this movie, watch it. Watch all 4 of these movies. They're all fantastic movies. And I know if you're a diehard Scooby fan, you will absolutely love these. And even if you're kind of mixed on Scooby-Doo, still give these a chance because I feel like you'll enjoy these a lot more than the regular shows. And yeah, that's pretty much all we got to say on this movie. So thank you guys so much for watching. It's just awesome to, have you guys always on. And thank you for BD for joining me on this collab. Always fun talking Scooby-Doo with you guys, or with you.
Hey, listen,
And
you're my brother. You have me on anytime. I always love talking with you.
yeah, so thank you guys for watching again. And be sure to stay tuned for more reviews. I will try getting more Goosebumps reviews out because I'm very behind on stuff. So I'm trying to get some more of those things out. I'm hoping to get my Let's Get Invisible episode review out soon. So stay tuned for that. And until then, I will see you all in the next video. See ya.
Peace.